Dallen Bounds was by all accounts a friendly kid who got along with people pretty well, but this calm demeanor had a more devious side, as Dallen had sticky fingers, getting busted multiple times for theft and robbery, with his worst offense being a thievery of 4 pistols, a rifle, and a shotgun, a crime in which he got off light with a 9-month sentence. He always held a job, but he continued to live outside the law. He had become obsessed with a divorced nurse, but after she rebuffed his advances, he spiraled into a deep depression, frantically scribbling in his diary about wanting to end it all. In the second half of 1999, Dallen decided that he wanted to leave this world, but he took others with him. Welcome to history's biggest villains. Dallen was born on August 9, 1971 in Ashland, Oregon, growing up in Lacey, Washington. He was described as an average student at Timberline High School. He had a stint in juvenile detention, but because his records were sealed, it's unclear what his crime was and how long he spent there. Dallen continued his criminal pursuits after he graduated high school, as in April, he and 21-year-old Son Min Hong Underwood entered a Gleacho's discount store in Lacey, stealing 4 pistols, a rifle, and a shotgun. The next month, they robbed Puget Sound Sports on DeVoe Street in Olympia of more guns. Both men were eventually caught and charged with first-degree burglary and possession of stolen property, with Dallen's bail being set at $15,000, while Underwood was held without bail. Both men pleaded guilty to the lesser charge of second-degree burglary, spending 9 months in prison. Even once Dallen was released, he just couldn't help himself, getting another 9 months for a theft in Sergio Woodley. Lots of people around him also noticed that he seemed to have developed ties with the KKK and the Aryan Brotherhood while in prison. In 1995, Dallen got married and had a child. The next year, the couple moved to Lake Havasu City, Arizona, where he enrolled at the Charles of Italy Beauty College, finding work as a butcher. But his temper seemed to get the best of him, as in January 1997, he was charged with domestic battery after nearly choking out his wife when she said she wanted to divorce him. When he was formally charged, Dallen said, "If I'm going to prison, it wouldn't be for just domestic violence. It would be for killing my wife." Even after these highly suspicious comments, the charges were dropped and his wife left him, taking their daughter with her to Idaho and marrying another man. After living in Tucson for a little while, Dallen was charged but not prosecuted with disorderly conduct. He then moved to an apartment with some friends in Greenville, South Carolina in early 1998. Over the next several months, Dallen worked several jobs, such as a cashier at Michael's Arts and Crafts, a butcher at Publix, and a delivery man, all under different aliases. Neighbors described him as friendly, but on visits to his apartment, they noticed a framed picture of someone being lynched, as well as a Ku Klux Klan Bible. In June 1999, Dallen met a 33-year-old nurse named Sandra Ott, a divorced mother who was a regular at the local karaoke bar. He became obsessed with her, constantly trying to get her attention, even going to her house and scattering rose petals on her driveway. It's unclear whether they ever dated, but Sandra was never truly serious about Dallen. After this, he began jotting his thoughts and feelings down in a diary, writing on several occasions that his life was falling apart and he wanted to kill himself. On June 26, 1999, an employee at the Radio Shack in Greenville arrived at the store. Highly confused that the lights were off, the front door was locked, and the close sign was flipped. Once he entered the store and went to the back room, he found his coworker Jonathan Lara tied to a chair with a screwdriver embedded in his neck, as paramedics said that the attack struck his jugular vein, killing him instantly. Police also discovered that money was stolen from the cash register, and Jonathan was last seen in the company of an unknown man and woman. Sandra felt like the holidays would be the best time to break things off with Dallen. He had also tried to apply for a clothing store under an alias, but he was recognized and called out by his real name. As his final journal entry on December 21, 1999 read, "Now that job may flush down the tubes and just in time for Christmas. I'm getting desperate. Besides, I'm not stable for Sandy." The next day, he went to the Greenville Pelham florist shop on Rutherford Road, encountering the clerk, 30-year-old Karen Moore Hayden. Dallen attacked her, leaving her face down in the back storage room with her throat slit. Her body was found after a customer discovered the store's lights off and the "Sorry, we're closed" sign hanging in the window. A delivery man finally unlocked the door and found the gruesome discovery. Similar to the Radio Shack murder, there were no signs of a struggle, and money was stolen from the cash register. Less than 2 hours after he killed Hayden, Dallen broke the living room window of Sandra's home and waited for her to return from work. When she got home and encountered Dallen, she was able to page her ex-husband Timothy at about 1:30 a.m., entering her number followed by 911 to signal an emergency. She then ran out of her apartment barefoot, leaving the door wide open as she rushed to Tim's house. But before she got very far, Dallen shot her in the head while their 5-year-old son slept in the other room. He then chased after Tim, who ran to the doorstep of a neighbor's house, but unfortunately, they weren't home, so Dallen caught up with him and shot him to death. Police were quickly alerted and a manhunt was now underway. Dallen proceeded to hide in various homes, entering them via unlocked doors. His first encounter was with an elderly woman living at 108 West 7th Street. He didn't harm her, simply asking to use the bathroom before he left. Soon after he entered the home of Edna Adkins on 111 West Street, she let him in, thinking he was the grandson of one of the neighbors. He stayed long enough to pet her dog and watch the 12 o'clock news, repeatedly asking her if the recent news of the double murders had mentioned a surviving 5-year-old. An hour later, Dallen entered a home on 211 South 3rd Street, occupied by 87-year-old Martha Browning and her granddaughter Deanna Tinsley. Initially, the women thought he was an acquaintance, but once they realized they didn't know him, they asked who he was. He then closed the blinds, quickly confessing that he had killed 2 people earlier and he was on the run. He then said that the pair would stay in the house with him as he cut off Martha's life alert necklace before putting it in his pocket. For the next several minutes, it was clear that his mind was gone, as during his conversations with Deanna, he alternated between inquiring about the family and expressing remorse for his actions. This was while Martha was in the kitchen preparing cookies for him, but while she was baking them, she noticed her neighbor Carl Burkett across the street checking his mailbox, and she tried to motion to him, but he didn't see her. She then ignored all danger and ran from the kitchen out the front door to get his attention, screaming for him to call 911. Instead of immediately alerting authorities, Carl ran to the house to look for himself, seeing Dallen completely consumed by a Christmas show on TV. But once the sound of police helicopters neared the home, Dallen snapped out of his trance, only to notice that officers were already approaching the house. Once they got close to him, they tried to arrest him, but Dallen panicked, pointing the gun at his temple and pulling the trigger. He was 28 years old. After Dallen's suicide, he was linked to the murders of Laura and Hayden via a knife and bloody clothes found in his apartment. Police also charged his roommate Cassandra Laster with aiding and abetting a fugitive, as she witnessed the Radio Shack murder and withheld information from the authorities for 2 years, waiting until after Dallen's death to tell police about his involvement. During her trial, her defense argued that she was afraid of Dallen and that she never saw him shoot Laura, and this was why she should be shown mercy. But testimony from another roommate, Brian Gale, sealed her fate, as he said she never appeared afraid of him and seemed to act normally around him. Cassandra was sentenced to 15 years in prison, as her later appeal was denied. A clear motive for Dallen's crimes has never been established. I don't even understand, maybe he had mental issues. It really is just so much information that's missing about him as a person. What was his childhood like? Maybe there was an incident, especially knowing that he was in juvie when he was young. What was he really in juvie for? We'll never know because those records were sealed. I don't get it. Watching Christmas shows, you can just disassociate so much after you've done such heinous acts. This story is just really confusing because it feels like it's not really all the way complete. But RIP to the victims. Thank you for watching. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on post notifications. I'm out. Peace.